I really feel like Victor has created a story that's an archetype, that this is a story of those two kids going down that lonely country road and running into some kind of wild, mystical thing.
After a summer of watching The Blair Witch and The Sixth Sense, and remembering that these were the kinds of movies that I made in high school and joyously made in high school and never thought of making any other kind of film, that I should really write my monster movie. And Jeepers Creepers just kind of leapt out of that. And I grew up watching the old Universal movies. I'm not from the Freddy generation or from the Friday the 13th generation. I'm too old for that. My brother and I would watch creature features with Bob Wilkins was our host, and we'd watch Creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula and Frankenstein and all the old Universal monster movies, which were based more on suspense and shadows on the wall, which, even though Jeepers Creepers will have a few graphic moments, we've tried hard not to really predicate it on gore, but rather on suspense and on images that would be hard to forget, just because they're sort of unnerving and indelible.
It's really a very simple story. Boy, girl, creature.
I like devoting my time to one or two characters. In fact, if you look at any of my films, you'll see that I like to stick to one person. He's usually a person close to my own sensibilities because I know and trust his reactions, and I think I can authentically portray his or her journey through the film. Derry, who's the younger brother, you know, I had no problem writing him because he felt so much like me. But the older sister, and I do have an older sister, and this is partially based on her because she is a very strong and smart survivor. I don't think I wrote her to her full potential, and Gina Phillips, who plays her, came in and she wasn't going to let me get away with any false moments. She became Trish and said, no, Trish really wouldn't do this. Wouldn't she do this and this? And she didn't make her part grow out of some kind of ego. She made her part grow because she was absolutely right. This is not a person who would stand by and watch this happen. She'd be more active in this. She'd be more assertive here. That's an example of how my own limitations as a writer are forgiven because of the talents of casting smart. We wanted to read everyone, and we boiled it down from about, I would say, at least 70 or 80 girls in town to two really gifted ones that we felt just played for real instead of posed.
You just said you didn't know everything. Now just what the hell are you full of shit about, and what aren't you, okay?
You think this is some kind of fun for me?
Just cut the fucking bullshit! Tell us what the hell you're trying to do!
Derry starts as a very light, open, innocent kind of character, and mine, Trish from the beginning, is a bit cynical. She's wounded. She's just broken up with her boyfriend, who's done some not so nice things to her, and I think she's been wounded by a man or two, and she has lots of walls up, and she's much guarded, more guarded than he is, and she's, you know, kind of tough and guarded and very preoccupied. Important for me to figure out what their history was so that when we play one of those games, I know, is this something we've played for 10 years, or is this something that's the first time we've played it? And that changes what we're doing and how we're relating to each other.
I think that's another reason I love his script so much. You know, they're not written in sort of a contrived way. They're not like setups to lead to another series of horrible events and a series of, you know, creature sightings.
I love that the heart of the movie wasn't about slashing, or the heart of the movie is this relationship with the brother and sister.
If you cast really smart and you've got people who really inhabit the characters and come up with really good suggestions that are still on the same page as your story, they help it grow and change into something even more authentic. I learned it from you. Why don't you just, I told you I learned it from you and kick it, because you're going to come around the side here anyway. You just kind of Studios used to be afraid to use writer-directors because they felt that the writers were so in love with their words that once they got onto the set, they wouldn't be able to let anything go or anything change. Now it's like the industry has changed. It's like they want writer-directors, but I think the important part of being a writer-director is being able to know that the writing is the first stage, and you're a proud papa, but in the next stage, you have to be a responsible parent and let that story grow and change and become something that might be outside what you wanted it to be.
What's really difficult is shooting scenes, like I said, in piecemeal, and having to physically get your heart up to a state of you know, shock and trauma. So I do a lot of running around before and a lot of push-ups just to get, you know, the the blood flowing and the blood pumping, like visibly shaking. It's one thing to feel that, but it's another, it has to be a physical thing. The whole body's got to be involved.
Having the director also be the writer, when something's not working or he has to change something because suddenly the weather's changed, he rewrites the scene like this. He makes it work. He wants our opinions. He wants our input. If I have an idea, there's never a moment where he's like, well, it's different than my line. He wants whatever's best for the movie, whatever's best for the characters.
What if it was you, instead of looking away, stare him down for that pregnant moment and see how that plays, okay? You're doing great, though. Both things. I think names get in the way of a story like this. But I love the idea that these kids are just breaking. Off camera almost just, but you're great. But we're on you and we're buying it 100%. Thanks to Francis, we have the autonomy to hire whoever we wanted, which is rare. And I was thrilled that we got fresh faces and really, really gifted ones. All right.
I met with Victor and he said, here's the script. And he said, just go home and read it. So I did, and I loved it. I was like riveted by it. I was like, oh my God, this is a really good monster movie. It's not like a psychological thriller. It's not, you know, a teen slasher movie. It's a monster movie, and it's serious.
I was going to hire Brad to do some storyboarding, basically. Well, Brad came in the first day, and he had 3 or 4 pictures of the creature based on the script. And they were so fantastic. In fact, the first one we saw was just so awesome that we immediately emailed it to Francis, who emailed us back and said, oh my God, this is great.
That was a part of the script at the cat lady's house, and she says that one line, that ain't my scarecrow. And I thought that was really gothic, this image of this guy standing in front of this old, rotted scarecrow. That was just like the essence of how dark and ragged this character was, that he would blend into the scarecrow. I grew up in Nebraska, and, you know, with rolling cornfields in the middle of nowhere, and like, you know, picket fences and barbed wire and old trees and all that kind of stuff, just like barren fields and just old houses and things that you just see driving around Nebraska. And there's a certain eeriness to all of that.
What if a man who wasn't a man could dress in such a way that you would think he was until he got right up close to you and you saw that he was not a man at all?
Yeah, the creeper himself, the way he was described in the script, where he at first appeared like an old man in ragged clothing, and on closer inspection you find out that there's something wrong with him. He looked like an old man at first, but there was like this eeriness about his face where you look like it's not quite right. And then, of course, the longer you looked, the more you realize there's something really different and strange and wrong with what this individual is. Victor was so clever in revealing more and more of the creature as you go through the film. It's not just that guy in an old coat. He changes and he morphs, and there's always something else going on with the creature than you know. He flies, he must be a vampire, he's got wings. And then you see him with his clothes off, he's got a reptile's body, he's got these huge leathery wings, he's like a gargoyle. I mean, okay, there's got to be one more step beyond that where you don't know what he is. That was like, I think, the biggest treat, to create a movie monster that you didn't recognize from somewhere else. That was like, oh, that's like weird and new, you know. That's so wonderful for a horror movie fan to see that and go, wow, something fresh. Somebody put the effort into doing something new and fresh. Giving less information about the creeper than just like saying, here's exactly what he is, and, you know, exactly what he's going to do and how he works and all the rules about it, leaving him vague and leaving him mysterious, and you only get little suggestions of what he is or what he isn't, and that makes it all the more scary because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know how to stop him. You don't know why he's coming after you. You don't know what he wants. You know, it's just this complete, horrible, dark force you know nothing about. In the script, he's got a workman's table in there with stuff on it. And when we were talking about what the set was going to look like, Victor was getting into, like, the creeper is an artist. And originally we had like this drawing of this big wood table, and I had him look like he had carved up the legs and the front half of the table, and the rest of it was still just wood planks. And on the top of the table, he had carved in this demonic thing, which at first in the film you'd go, wow, that's like, you know, some satanic symbol. Because at first, at this point in the movie, you just think he's a serial killer or something. He's, you know, dumping bodies down this hole behind the church. He's a serial killer. And look, he's carved like some kind of Satan thing into this table, you know. He's a devil-worshipping maniac. But then by the end of it, as a little kid, I was drawing monsters. I was like, the first things I ever drew were like monsters. And to be able to have like drawn a monster and to have somebody come in and say, oh yeah, this is nice, we're going to now make it into a real thing. And then step by step, see like the costume people come in and say, yeah, this is the clothes it's going to wear, and these are the boots and the pants and the shirt and all that kind of stuff. And then you know, the makeup effects guys come in and say, this is how we're going to sculpt it, and this is what the back of the head's going to look like. And then see the actor come in, and you know, this is how it's all going to fit on him, and this is the way it's going to walk, and this is the way it's going to have an attitude. And then to see it turn into this living, breathing creature, I mean, it's just amazing. It's just awesome. I mean, it's like, you know, the pinnacle of any horror movie fan is to see a monster that you drew turn into a living, breathing thing. And I'd go and I'd talk to Breck in between takes sometimes, and you know, he'd be in this huge, great, gothic monster makeup. And a little kid inside me would be jumping up and down going, it's the monster! It's the monster! And all excited, I'm trying to act cool and around him, and he's like, you know, having all this patience with me, you know, yeah, I'm the monster, you know, and he's telling me about other projects he's working on, and, you know, and it was like, you know, his voice coming out of this really scary, horrific, you know, gothic monster was just great. I mean, it was just surreal. It was wonderful. There's nothing else like it. If you have a chance to do it, you should try it.
As a director, my job is to make the strongest impressions as quickly as possible in telling my stories. As a result, I wanted both Trisha's car and the creeper van to have distinct on-camera personalities. And after my production designer, Stephen Legler, took me through old catalogs of different cars from past to present, the only cars with real cool angles and personalities came from the 50s and 60s. Later model sedans, as I had described in my script, all look like eggs on wheels compared to the lines and fins and incredible and classic architecture of these vintage cars. Getting close to the deadline of shooting and still without a car selected for Trish and Derry, we were driving to the art department one day in Central Florida, and at a stoplight there was this wonderful old car idling next to us with this old fellow driving it. And he had kept it up, so it was really beautiful. And I was like, that's it. What is that? What kind of car is that? And it was pure happenstance that we found the right car to be the great character that takes the kids through this roller coaster ride. We didn't have the budget to buy, paint, and restore 3 Chevy Impalas, or remove the transmissions from their steering wheels and put them on the floor, as per my script. So everyone was trying to steer me away from them, no pun intended. Except for my producer, Barry Opper, who seemed to understand that to have the right car, which is essentially a character in the film, was worth the extra money.
I think the problem when the restrictions are running a show, when the limitations are running a show, you don't have the ability to say, let's go for it. And therefore, you may come in on time, on budget, but I think the thrill...
Voice like, you know, some archaic monster. It has horns. If you're looking up at it, those 3 little lights at the top are horns. It's a lot like a medieval helmet, almost, of some dark knight, you know. It's got like these weird blacked out visor with these horns on the front and this metal grill of a mouth. And it's, you know, it's just this really demonic looking thing.
They originally wanted a van, but they couldn't find a van that looked as menacing as this truck, so they went ahead and built a back to it. I've got plenty of room in the back there to hang all my weapons of destruction and do all my gathering of bodies.
We were still in Los Angeles in production. I was driving around, and I think going into work one day to do more boarding, and this old van drove by me. And it was really old, and the paint on it was all messed up. and it was like rusted, and there was like this strange work rail welded to the side of it, and there's like all decayed and strange. And I saw that and I was like, wow, that's like, you know, that's like the creeper's truck, something this disgusting.
The cab that I absolutely loved for the front of the creeper van was from a Rio truck from the late 1940s. It was from a flatbed truck, so my production designer, Stephen Legler, needed to design a box for the back to turn it into a van. While our transportation department worked on the mechanics of the truck, putting the pieces from several junkyards back together, Stephen had a set and effects shop in Orlando build the box and rear doors, and did what Stephen called the scenic painting, distressing them to look old and rusty and nasty. Stephen built 3 creeper vans, all matching, and 2 of which ran. One had the original engine, and another had a souped-up V8 with an automatic transmission used for the chase and stunt shots.
What the hell is that? Is that the... Yeah. Holy shit, that's creepy.
The last thing he did was to design his front bumper for ramming the car and to look terrifying. Stephen said he modeled it somewhat after the cow catcher on an old steam locomotive, but reversed the shape, making it narrower in the center and wider on the outsides. It looked more like a rammer, and it also gave it more of a face. Stephen designed the van almost a little too good, because on the first day of shooting, when we wanted to tap the Chevy with the creeper van for some side view shots of the truck attack, the big fender Stephen designed was so effective that even at just cruising speed, the van demolished the back end of our picture car. Unfortunately, it was our A car, which means the best of the 3 Chevys got badly bashed, and on day 1, when there were still shots to do with it, undamaged. My director of photography, Don Fauntleroy, really kind of saved the truck attack sequence. As assistant cameraman and camera operator, Don worked on so many big-budget action flicks, like T2, for example, that what he brings to the table is an incredible body of experience and ability. He told me before we shot the truck attack that we had 5 cameras and he wanted to use them all. He strapped the creeper van with 3 cameras and let it take off, chasing Trish and Derry's car with their stunt doubles driving. The result were 3 notable and dramatic angles, all used in the film. The first was a high camera slashed to the top of the creeper truck, and it gave us the eerie and shaky bird of prey angle that sort of rocketed after the kid's car in just the way the script talked about. The shakiness of the angle, which couldn't be avoided because of the precarious nature of the camera and the old truck it was attached to, only seemed to help the angle convey a sense of speed and power. The second camera was slashed low to the ground on the front of the creeper van's cow catcher. With this low-angle camera attached to the creeper truck and fit with a wide-angle lens, it allowed us to go after the Chevy and get in very close, as if we were smashing into it. The wide-angle lens took full advantage of the beautiful fins and the angles of the back of the Chevy and made the car's swerves and jolts even more dramatic. The third camera Don slashed to the side of the creeper van, just behind the front right wheel. This became my favorite angle for the chase, because the spinning wheel and the road rushing under it created such a velocity that it became sort of mesmerizing, especially as it came up on the fleeing Chevy. Don told me I would need lots of little pieces to really show this attack the way I wanted to show it. And there's a certain amount of experience and enthusiasm that a director would be a fool to fly in the face of, and I certainly felt that way with Donnie, who just had a terrific approach for every sequence in Jeepers. But I felt that the truck chase especially, he went in and came out with stuff that surpassed my expectations and storyboards completely. Like Don said, it's amazing what one mounted camera down low with a tire in the foreground can achieve.
Cameras are giving speed, 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 and action cars, action cars.
My memories of the Chevys and the creeper van are only that they rarely worked. More than a few takes were scrubbed because 1 or 2 of them just plain puttered out.
Birds!
In 1971, I must have been 12 or 13, Duel was a movie of the week. And I don't think consciously I was going, okay, I'm going to do my little version of Duel here in the first act of my movie. But once I saw the dailies of the the big old truck coming up and going back and forth, I just said, oh my God, I'm doing Duel. I'm making Duel. In fact, our creature is a truck for the first third of the film. He has 3 forms.
We have a bad dude, you know. I've been tracking people for centuries, and I'm an enigma of sorts. You know, nobody really knows exactly what I am in the film.
Darwin would love this guy. I mean, he's just a higher up on the food chain, and he's doing what he's got to do. You know, now that you mention it, he's not such a bad guy after all.
It's not all that often that a director or a producer will ask the makeup artist or the makeup effects artist their opinion on something. They'll just say, when can we have this? When they were doing their casting, their tests, when they were interviewing different actors to do it, they actually asked me my opinions on who they were thinking on choosing, and naturally they went with Jonathan Breck. He had a lot of charisma, and I thought he had a great look.
Like most auditions, 95% of the people aren't even in the ballpark. 4% are, yeah, there's something there, but 1% is like, that's it. You know it when you see it. You know, it's like within the first 10 seconds. Breck shaved his head for the part, so he walked in completely bald-headed.
I had a really strong feeling that this character would be, you know, would be really clean and bald, and that's what I wanted to show him. So I shaved my head and went in and got the part.
Jonathan Breck.
He's a very nice-looking guy, but once he took his hair away, he didn't look nice anymore. His eyes just kind of burned out at you, and he was very intimidating. And when he first came in and did the sniff test, we called it, you know, we were scared, really scared.
Victor and Brad Parker had been working on designs, from what I understand, for about 8 months. By the time they came to us to ask us to build stuff, they already had a design for the creature pretty well locked down. They knew what they wanted, and it was our job to take it and make changes to it so that it was practical to do on a human being. The script originally said that the creature has facial wings that open up, so we were trying to design series of wrinkles and things that we could somehow make it believable.
Having somebody who's basically encased in a creature costume and shooting in a humid, warm environment is always a challenge.
There's been a few times when I've been like, you know, felt like things were closing in on me a little bit. You know, one night that comes to mind is when I'm riding on top of the car, on the roof of the cop car, and I actually pull the cop through the roof of the car and chop his head off with my battle axe. That night was, you know, just in the full makeup. I was leaning over, squatting down, basically in a squatting position the whole time, and pouring a sweat to the point where the cameraman and everybody next to me was literally, wasn't even a drip, it was literally a...
For the Creeper, we built 5 complete suits and then about 10 masks, both stunt masks and masks that Jonathan Breck wears, as well as numerous prosthetic appliances that we use for the closer days when they're going to be shooting close-up.
Ryan's one of those guys whose work is so incredible that half of the pictures he had done, I didn't know they had makeup effects in them. That, to me, is the greatest compliment that I can pay a makeup effects person. I mean, I didn't know Al Pacino had a fake nose in the Oliver Stone picture, and I didn't know that Brian did it, so it's like, wow.
Jonathan has gone to great lengths to not get to know our actors on the set at all. So when the kids first are revealed to the creature, it is on set, on camera.
I think it's a great idea that if they got to know me as a person, they would see somebody behind the creature, and we really didn't want them to do that.
Anything that we can do to help our fear, I think, is good. And and the unknown, the fact that we haven't met him yet, and that he's really just still a mysterious thing, is going to be good.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said, "No, where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm in the middle of a retirement village in Central Florida, and there's a hurricane coming, and I can't hang out with any of the cast, you know." And he was like, "Oh, wow, this is a pretty grueling shoot for you." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's going to pay off."
Victor is very shot specific. When he lines up to do something, he knows exactly what he wants to see, and thank God for that, because then we can adjust what we need to do. If we know that the creature is going to be squatting down over a victim, then we can make sure that there aren't any weird imperfections showing on the back side of the suit or up his crotch, or areas where there would be tension on the rubber and it would look strange. We'd see it stretching like a rubber suit and not looking like flesh over muscles. He already had a ponytail type hair piece in the back of the design before we were involved, so I wanted to incorporate patches of hair into like the groin, the crotch area that we could easily hide flaps, and patches up the back to hide zippers, and bring some more hair onto the body and give it something interesting to look at. Victor is very attentive. He's very alert, and when he hears a comment and he likes it, he'll work with it. In one case, once he finally saw Jonathan in the complete suit when we did like a dress rehearsal for him, he thought, wow, maybe we should show more of the creature in its entirety, because originally the end of the film was the only time we saw the creature as his true form, whether it be a demon or a gargoyle or whatever you want to call it. That was very late in the film. But once Victor saw the suit, he was like, I want to see more of this in the film. I don't want to keep him in his clothing.
I can take credit for the idea of this creature, and I did get to make the final decisions on its look, but without Brad and then Brian, you know, those are the guys that really delivered a truly original and indelible creature to the movie, and for that I am, you know, forever grateful. The largest part of the month and a half we spent shooting nights took place on what my director of photography, Don Fauntleroy, liked to call 6 moons over Florida. That's because it really did look like 6 small moons rising at the start of each shooting night. Donnie chose 18 massive lights called super dinos, and were raised up by 6 condors, large industrial cranes that can put a lot of weight high in the sky, and all to create on film what would look like moonlight. Enough to light a piece of country road 3/4 of a mile long and a...
Trish's double was a young lady named Jennifer Badger. She was always up for the job, and she did a real nice job, especially with the car sequence, where we had a little tricky driving to do with this big, huge boat of a car. You know, we got to spin it around on these narrow back country lanes, and there's barely room to drive it down the road, much less spin it around. And
Victor has prepared this movie on a level that I've never seen a director prepare a movie on. He storyboarded every shot. He has critically gone through each word in the script, but having done that, as we adapt to the day-to-day shooting, he is prepared to change that, to take advantage of the situation that we're in, or to help deal with the problems that we're facing.
It's about playing that card game, you know. We have some great cards in the beginning, but we haven't played our strongest cards yet. We even have more fantastic cards to play.
Okay, we're set. Take it, Jim. Okay, 3, 2, 1, action.
Two stunt people did the running over the car, Hank Amos and Kevin Ball, both phenomenally talented guys. And then when we got it to where I was happy with it, and I thought it was what Victor wanted to see, then we would bring Victor in to look at it, and he would say yay or nay.
That was good.
Good job, Hanky.
What we had them in was a suspension system that took part of their weight, but yet allowed them to be in control. So as the car's coming at them, they time their own actions. That way, you know, nobody can time things for you better than you can when you're in the situation. And so they were totally in control themselves at the time, and they did just a phenomenal job. She's standing up, so we had to fly him on a wire rig coming down the wall, crawling sideways. And the attitude and the body language of the creature was just like, just creepy coming at you, and I really enjoyed that.
Settle, everyone. And action!
I love the fact that I live alone with cats. I mean, that I could very well end up that way. Cats are fascinating. Cats are something to watch and learn from. I mean, they're very comforting, like a baked potato.
I always write for someone in mind, but it's so rare that I actually get the person that in the case of Eileen, it's really fantastic.
And she told me, she said,
Okay, now let's see the push in on Eileen past the barrel. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, aim at the scarecrow, Eileen. Let's see what this looks like.
all right, from the scarecrow light.
You know, this is really where this plays. You guys, as soon as she comes out, we're going to push into this, okay?
I love old school actors and actresses because they just have no barriers anymore. They just sort of say, which is the way it should be with everybody, but they're just unabashed and completely honest.
So it's always exciting when another actor comes in and kind of mixes it up a bit, and I think she's so talented that she's just going to make it more interesting and all the scenes so much better.
Excited to work with her because I've seen her work before. And, you know, I'm a fan. I actually pick her up by the neck and smell her and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a ball, you know. I think we're going to have a really good time doing it.
Action!
The creature's very real. I mean, I could have a nice conversation with him, but Victor didn't write that.
Action!
You know what W.C. Fields said, and we didn't have any kids. I have never worked with this many animals before.
Action!
Look, did you hear what I just said, lady?
Action! We cut! Action! And cut! And action!
One of the most important things about a movie like this is you shouldn't really trust the filmmaker. You know, I have to kind of subvert your faith in me as a storyteller. If you think you can second guess me, I have to prove early that you can't, so that you just have to surrender your expectations and let me take you on the ride.
I didn't know how to drive a stick shift before this movie, I have to admit. So I went and took stick shift driving lessons before. And I went out in the student driver car. I felt like a huge dork in the student driver car, yes. And my first lesson, all I did was stall.
In the world of digital effects, Jeepers Creepers had its small share of computer-generated magic, though we planned to use CGI as little as possible. The exception to the rule about a real live creeper working in front of the camera were his wings.
1, 2, 3.
For those, we relied on the magic of E equals MC squared. The CGI wings were added slowly and incrementally until their movements and texture were perfected.